Howdy y'all, it's Jamie. New setup today on Linux. I didn't want to update to Windows 11, so now we're on Linux. I got a border on my webcam. Somebody suggested doing a border, and I thought that was a cool idea, so now I've got a border on my webcam. And the audio quality is worse now. I'm hoping that people like that. I've been told that the bad audio in my videos actually makes them really charming and fun. And I'm hoping that if the audio is worse, that people will like them more. At least that's what I'm telling myself, because I'm through trying to figure out how audio works on Linux. It is not for the faint of heart, and I don't feel like messing around with the audio settings anymore in OBS or in Linux. So you guys tell me what you think about the new worse audio in the comments. Anyway, I've recorded this video so many times. It's been hard to know how to tell this story appropriately, because in order to do it justice, I kind of have to get a little personal, and y'all will see what I mean by that here in a minute. And I've been unsure if that's really kind of the direction that I want to take this channel in, because I don't usually talk about myself in these videos. I usually just talk about my Minecraft world, and that's usually what people come here for. And I don't know if this really hard shift is gonna go over very well, but this is a topic that I haven't seen a whole lot of people talk about. This is like an aspect of the transition process that I didn't know a whole lot of going into it. I didn't hear a lot of people talk about. I heard whispers of it, and that's about it. And I think I've got some perspective that might be valuable in that respect. And so I want to talk about it. First of all, I am transgender. I don't think I needed to tell you that if you clicked on this video. But to returning viewers, if you didn't know that before, now you do. I briefly mentioned it in my Q&A, and that was about it. But yeah, I've been out, like, I guess 7 years, maybe? Almost 7. And I've been on HRT for a year last month. And I really want to tell you guys the story about about progesterone specifically. Just a preface, a little warning. This is gonna get a little mature. So if you've got some small children in the room, maybe put them to bed. Pause the video, put them to bed, get yourself a glass of wine, and then come back, because it's going to be a little mature. It's going to be a little bit mature today. So a little bit of background. Typically, when they put you on feminizing hormones, what they'll do is they'll start out with the estradiol and then a testosterone suppressant, often spironolactone is what they gave me. I know there's another one that they also use, but it's estradiol and then the testosterone suppressant. They keep you on the suppressant for a short amount of time just to clear your system out, and then once the estrogen is in there, it kind of takes care of things for you. They do that for about 6 to 8 months, and then they put you on progesterone. And the reason that they do that is because it just results in more natural breast development. It's the estrogen, I'm told, promotes growth outwards, and then the progesterone tends to stop the outward growth and it rounds them out. So if you do the progesterone too soon, they might not be as big as you were expecting. So they tend to put you on it later. A friend of mine, who's also transgender, MTF, she was telling me that another effect of progesterone is that it can increase your libido. And that piqued my interest a little bit, because one of the first things that happens when you get on the testosterone suppressants is that you kind of lose your sex drive. And that can be good thing, bad thing, depends on the person. For me, it was a little bit of relief, because I feel like my sex drive was pretty high before HRT. And it was nice to get a break from the distraction. But I am in a committed 7-year relationship as of this August, and I am still sexually active, so it was kind of it piqued my interest, because I was like, it would be nice if the desire was there a little bit, because it was a little bit of a bummer, because it was gone. So it piqued my interest. I was like, that'll be nice. That'll be nice. Maybe it'll be 50% of what it was before, maybe 40, that would be fine. The way she described it working for her was almost like instant release. Like, she would take it, and if she didn't immediately go to bed, she'd be in the mood, like within like a couple hours. And I wanted to test to see if that's how it worked for me on a day that I did not have to go anywhere. I took it earlier in the day, in the morning or in the afternoon, and there's none of that. Nothing like that happened to me. I didn't get horny, I didn't get drowsy. That's another symptom of it. That's why they tell you to take it at night. But I didn't get any of that. And I took it for days and days and days. I didn't really notice any change. But about 2 weeks in, it hit me, like, all at once. And it's, they say that HRT is kind of like a second puberty. I remember what puberty felt like. I remember being like a 15-year-old boy and thinking that I had a high sex drive. But I had never felt anything like this before in my life. I was, it was like the full moon had emerged from behind the clouds, and I had turned into an animal. It was like, I did not anticipate how distracting it would be. It was like 24/7 brain fog. It was, I would describe it to my friends at the time. I told them without exaggeration that it felt like being on like Molly or ecstasy or something. I've never tried either of those before, but the way I've heard it described was a lot like what I was experiencing. It was like a fugue state. Like, it felt like being on drugs. It was like there was one day in particular. I had been in the habit that summer. This was in June. June of this year. I don't know why I'm saying that summer. It was this summer. But I had been in the habit of going on walks in the morning. Like going on just a light walk, maybe a little bit of jogging. And like I went out one morning to do that, to try to clear my mind, and it was not happening. It was genuinely that distracting that I could not, like, I almost turned around and went back home. Like, it was that bad. And it was like I'm telling you, like, I was panting. I had never done that before. When I'm horny, like, it was a very new kind of feeling. And luckily, you know, like, I was walking outside. I'm sure people just thought that I was out of shape. But it was because I was thinking about sex. It was really genuinely because of that. I almost turned around and went back home. I'm so serious. There was another point in time during this. This lasted like 5 or 6 days. This felt like a bender. It was like, so that friend of mine I mentioned earlier, the other trans woman that I know, we're like best friends. She texted me one day. She's like, "Hey, I'm going through a lot. I could use a friend to talk to. Are you busy? You know, could I swing by your place and like have a beer and just talk?" And I was like deep in it at this point. And I was like, yeah, man, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That's sure, come on over. And I was like so deep in it. I was so, like, I knew I needed to snap out of it. Like, I knew that I needed to get normal and like compose myself. And so I went to try to take care of business, you know, the way that I used to do. And it was, I'm gonna get detailed here. There was no post-nut clarity. It was like, there wasn't that familiar feeling of relief afterwards. It was, you know, there wasn't that moment at the end where you snap out of it and you're back down on earth and you can get on with the rest of your day. It was like the brain fog was still there. Like, I kind of just, if anything, it made it worse. Like, I kind of just wanted to do it again. And that was a problem because I had a friend coming over and I was trying to take care of business. I was trying to get it out of my system, and that wasn't happening. And she comes over and she can totally tell. Like, when I say that it felt like being on drugs, I'm not being the least bit hyperbolic. It was like it was like like I was zooted. I was slurring my words. She was like, "Are you okay? Is this a bad time? You look terrible." I was like, and by the end of it, I kind of felt like shit, because it was, you know, like, the dishes weren't getting done, man, you know, like, it was a lot of work. It was very exhausting. It was, I had never felt something like that before in my life. But it was, you know, as intense as it was for the few days that it was rather brief. It was, you know, it kind of started out of nowhere, and then suddenly, one day, it was just over. And I was like, what the hell was that? I must have been ovulating, is what I told my friends I did. I was joking. I was like, I must have been ovulating. That was 13, 14 days, probably. 2 weeks after I started progesterone, peak being around 13, 14 days. About 2 weeks after that, I come home from work one day, and I've got this pain in my lower back. And I thought it was a little peculiar, because it was a short shift. I'm pretty sure it was only like 4 or 5 hours. And we were not busy. But I had this pain in my back. It was a bit intense. I had a cup of tea. I took a hot shower. And my partner rubbed some, like, CBD lotion into my back, gave me a little bit of a massage, and I figured that was probably overkill. That would probably take care of me. But I wake up the next morning, and first of all, I wake up before my alarm goes off, because I need to shit, and it was like a gnarly shit. It was like porcelain spray painting kind of shit. Like, it was like not fun. So I wake up, I do that, and I get up off the john, and it doesn't, like, my stomach still hurts afterwards. Like, it felt like there was still more coming. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll have my cup of coffee, maybe something will happen afterwards. Nothing happened afterwards. But I'm getting ready for work, and I noticed that pain in my back from the day before still there. And I was like, how the hell does my back still hurt? I hardly worked yesterday, and I did all that, and my back still hurts. And now my stomach hurts, because I've got some kind of indigestion. And I go to work, and I'm in a sour mood because my stomach hurts. And at a certain point, I start crying a little bit. I start tearing up. I'm trying to compose myself, and I'm trying to, you know, not have to excuse myself to the bathroom. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know, my brother hates me, and I know it deep down, and he doesn't tell me, but he does, and I know it. And I've convinced myself of this, and I'm tearing up because of it. But I get over it, like, within a few minutes, and then after that, I'm horny, and then after that, a few minutes later, I'm pissed off again. And that all happens within the space of probably like an hour or two. and the pain in my stomach is getting worse. And at a certain point, while this is all happening, I start kind of connecting the dots in my head, and I'm like, okay, that ovulation thing was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before that is when I started progesterone. That's about 28 days. Is this cramps? Is that what's going on here? Am I on my period? My first period? Is that what's going on here? And I had heard that that could happen. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I didn't understand what exactly that entailed. But I'd heard that some trans women can get a cycle. I certainly never expected it to happen to me. But I was a little bit in disbelief, though. I was kind of talking myself out of it. I was like, there's no way that's what's happening here, because the stomach pain really just felt like indigestion. It didn't feel like how I thought cramps are supposed to feel like. I remember growing up watching, YouTube videos of like some science conference, and it would be a machine that they hook up to you that simulates what period cramps feel like electrodes and stuff. And they'd go and they'd find like the gnarliest dude that they could find, and they'd say, "Oh, do you think you have what it takes to handle period cramps, what women have to deal with every month?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, man, I bet it's not as bad as getting kicked in the balls." And then they hook him up to the machine, and they turn it on, and he just writhes and convulses in pain, and he screams and wails and says, "Oh, please turn it off, it hurts so much." And then they turn it off, and they're like, "See, it hurts really bad, Are you a feminist now?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm sorry, women." Yeah, he hits him with the Roderick Heffley, And then they ask him, "Would you go to work if you felt like that?" And he says, No, if I ever felt like that, I would call in sick." And I was thinking about that video, and I was like, well, I didn't call in sick. It really kind of just felt like indigestion. So I was like, there's no way that these are period cramps. There's no way. See, but here's the thing. That was just the first day. The second day, it was unmistakable. I had never felt a tummy ache like that before in my life. The pain in my lower back was worse than ever. The pain in my abdomen had spread all the way from down in my gut to all the way up under my rib cage. All of that was tense. It felt like something was lodged inside of me. It was like I felt like I was hunched over all day because it hurt to stand up straight. I felt like a coal miner with food poisoning. It was very painful. It was worse than getting hit in the balls. I'm going to be honest with you. I can settle the debate right now. It was dull. It was like, getting hit in the balls is like, that's like standing next to a gunshot. This was more like having to listen to a car alarm less than a block away for like 12 hours. It just didn't stop. It was unmistakable. And immediately, I knew at that point that that's what was happening, and that was the end of my first cycle. And I started looking into this sort of thing. It's easy to talk about in person. Online, I will say a lot of people get a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to it. I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier, a lot of people tend to have a knee-jerk reaction to it. A lot of people kind of assume that you, like don't believe in biology or something, or that you're trying to be woke, or like you're trying to like say something to, you know, be politically correct or something. I don't know. It's like people think you're trying to say that there's no difference between men and women, and you know, biological sex isn't real, and you know, if you don't agree with me, you're a bigot, and I'm gonna cancel you because I'm woke. You know, like, that's kind of what people think when they hear trans women can have a cycle, is they think all of that, which is kind of how they feel about trans women in general. But this especially, because I think they think that something else is being said, or that you're trying to say that trans women bleed, which does not happen. But I looked into it because I wanted to know more, because I was quite confident that that was what was happening, and I wanted to understand how that's even possible. So I did some Googling, and the way it works is, you know, although a trans woman obviously does not have a female reproductive system, the hormonal fluctuations that happen within a woman's body that regulate the menstrual cycle, that can still happen within a transgender body. That kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know how that works myself. I'm not the right person to ask about that. It confused me a bit, because I was like, I'm taking a consistent dose of estradiol and progesterone every day. How are my levels fluctuating enough that it's causing a cycle? I couldn't tell you. I still don't really understand how that works, but it's I guess it's possible, I guess. I've experienced it, at least. I remember that particular day I got home from work, that day that my cramps were so bad, and I called my sister. I'm like, you're not gonna believe the day that I'm having. And I explained to her what was going on, and she was like, I did not know that was possible. And I was like, me neither. How do you think I feel? And it was awfully funny. She swung by my place with an old heating pad of hers that she was willing to part with, and she brought some like chocolates, and she sat down with me, and you know, like, gave me some advice. She's like, oh, you know, like, they're not always that bad. You know, some months I don't even get cramps. And she kind of, she was just giving me some sisterly advice. She's younger than me, but that particular evening, it was like she got to be the older sister. It was very sweet. It was a very sweet interaction. It was a very lovely conversation about womanhood. And it made me feel like a real woman. I decided after that, I was like, you know what, I should call my mother. I should call my mother, tell her about the day I've had. And well, that one wasn't My mother is supportive of me. But, and this advice goes for no matter who you are, cisgender, transgender, whatever else, non-binary, don't call your mother asking for medical advice. Because I called her up, I was like, how many days do your cramps usually last, Mom, before menopause? How long did they last when you were about my age? And then I explained to her the day that I was having, I explained to her what I've explained to you with, slightly less detail. And she was like, it might be appendicitis. Which side does it hurt on? Because if it's on the right side, and I'm like, Mom, I'll tell you when it's appendicitis. Every time. My whole fucking life. Anytime I tell my mom that I have a tummy ache, it's appendicitis. It's not appendicitis. Mom, if you're watching this video, I hope you're not watching this video. That would be mortifying if you were watching this video. I really hope this video doesn't blow up, to tell you the truth, because the last time that happened, 2 people from work told me that they saw it, and if that happens with this video, I will blow my shit smooth off. You guys will never see or hear from me again. But anyway, what was I talking about? I had a very nice conversation with my sister, is what I'm talking about. I wanted to, briefly, hopefully, I wanted to kind of explain how I've been tracking it, because it's easy to track it when you bleed, but when it's just hormones, it's kind of just vibes, to tell you the truth, which is not easy. It's kind of just like I try to pay attention to my mood over the course of the month to see, to get a gauge on where I am. And I've noticed, I talk about this with cis women, and not a whole lot of them are familiar with this kind of aspect of the ovarian cycle. They know, that ovulation happens, the egg is released, fallopian tube, and then if conception happens, yada yada. If it doesn't, menstruation, they know that, right? But the changes in hormones and how that can affect your mood, that's something I've noticed is less well understood by women in general, just by talking with women. And so I kind of want to briefly share. I've got a chart. I've got a chart here. Your hormones fluctuate throughout the month. You can, you start tracking it. If you didn't know, first day of your period is day 1 of your cycle. Let me pause. It's day 1 of your cycle. You count 2, 3, 4, 5, even after your period ends. You keep counting until 26, 27, 28. And then you start over at the start of your next period. So, typical cycles, 28 days. Mine, I've noticed, is closer to 26, sometimes shorter. You can roughly divide them in half. The first half is the follicular. You tend to have higher estrogen but lower progesterone. And then during the luteal phase, it flips. So you've got high progesterone, low estrogen. I'm sure you know how having your period affects your mood. Ovulation obviously affects certain aspects of your mood as well. But during your follicular and luteal, specifically this part of your follicular, I think it's called the proliferative phase. You might not know how it might affect your mood when you're in either of these phases. So if you are follicular, after your period is over, your period is, I like to think of it as it's kind of like crying or throwing up. It's like it doesn't feel good. in the moment, but when it's over, it leaves you feeling very refreshed, and it feels you like it leaves you feeling better. You tend to have higher energy during this time of the month. You tend to have typically a improved mood. You feel more refreshed, certainly. You tend to be a bit more spontaneous. So, like if your friend texts you during this time of the month and asks you to hang out at a very short notice, you're less likely to decline, I guess. If you know, like if they text you like, oh my god, there's a movie happening at 6 p.m. tonight. Do you want to see it with me, like right now? You know, during other parts of the month, you'd be like, oh, tonight, you know? But, you get what I'm trying to say. You tend to be more spontaneous, you tend to be more, you have higher energy, higher mood, higher energy. You tend to feel a bit better. The luteal phase, you tend to be a little bit more low energy. You get drained a little bit more quickly. Your mood, especially towards the end of the luteal phase, like a week before your period, you tend to be sometimes depressed. You can be tired, really, really tired. You can have a shorter temper. A lot of this is the PMS part of the cycle right here. But throughout the rest of the luteal phase, you might just experience lower energy. You tend to be a little bit less sociable. You tend to, your social battery runs out a little bit more quickly. You tend to get drained a little bit during your luteal phase. And then that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to briefly mention that. That is kind of how I keep track of my period. keep track of my cycle, I guess. I do try really hard to keep track of it because I do notice it works. Like, I feel like before, I don't think that I had a cycle before I started progesterone, but there were times where I'd be like, I would want to be more sociable at work, and for a little while I was very high energy. I had a very I was very eager to talk with people at work, to talk with customers, to be very outgoing. And then it would just, one day I'd come to work and I'd just have no energy, and I didn't know where it came from. And keeping track of this has made it a lot more reassuring to me, because there are days where I go to work and I'm like, oh, I'm just feeling luteal, like I know that it's a week before my period is supposed to be, and it's kind of reassuring to know that the only reason that I'm in a bad mood is because I'm in the last week of my cycle, and then there are, and then I like to plan things ahead, like I'll plan dates with friends, and I'll look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be follicular that week. That's going to be real good. I'm going to have a real good time, and I usually do. Honestly, I don't know if I should share this. The main reason that I try to keep track of it is because that first ovulation, I had like really, really incredible sex, and as soon as I realized that this might be happening, the first thought that crossed my mind was, oh my god, there's a chance that that's going to happen every month now. I wasn't even thinking about the cramps. I was like, that's gonna happen every month? Or like, I was like, shit, yeah, I'm keeping track of that. I need to plan ahead. You know, I need to make sure that I've got nothing going on that night. I'm like, that's like 90% of the reason that I started keeping track of this is because of that. It was, we had a very nice time. I'll leave it at that. I've already shared too much. I don't even know if I'm going to post this video. I'm going to be honest with you. I've recorded it so many times. I really want to tell this story. I've told this story to so many of my friends, and I don't know if you guys are going to like it. This might be a flop. This might be the worst decision I've ever made in my life to put this on the internet, but I don't hear a whole lot of people talk about this part of the transition, so I wanted to talk about it. But that's about it. That's about it. I hope y'all enjoyed this one. If you've watched this part, thank you very much. Y'all are incredible. I don't know how to end this, to be honest.